Okay. And this is the last section of our conversation. I want to thank you for your time. It's really appreciated.
You're welcome.
This final section will culminate all the ideas that were presented in the previous two sections. The first question I'm going to ask you is, do you feel that creativity is something that is valued in writing instruction? Now, I asked you before, do you feel that creativity is valued in writing? But now I'm asking if you think it's valued in writing instruction, as in do your teachers use creativity as a tool to teach you writing?
I get the feeling that English classes are against creativity because grading is based entirely upon whether you can follow directions or not.
Yeah.
And like,
Okay.
It's all formula.
yeah,
Classes are very formulaic, just like movies are. Like with movies, if you follow this step, and this step, you're going to make a lot of money.
yeah,
Same thing like Avatar, highest grossing movie of all time. The story's been done
50,000
a million times. Pocahontas, Dances with Wolves, it's all the same thing. Same thing with English class. Like, you follow the step-by-step thing to write the paper, you're going to get a good grade on the paper. The second you deviate from the equation, then you take a risk.
Well, I have a question. Is there a desire to deviate?
yeah.
Is there a
Yeah.
desire
There's always a desire to deviate because it's a desire for rebellion.
Okay.
You don't want to always do the same. Plus, to you, it becomes boring as a writer because it becomes a repetitive process. Like, okay, beginning, middle, and end, and now I have to do all this. There's no joy left in it at the end.
If people didn't have the desire to deviate, we wouldn't have evolved at all. We would just be the same forever.
And English teachers or English classes aren't allowing you to deviate?
No.
Right. Okay.
Well, I feel like they just don't want us to, like the same reason that editors tell you sometimes to play it safe, because they feel like if you deviate too much that it's not going to be accepted. Like certain movies, for example, some movies have deviated, I can't think of an example right at the moment, and they've been like
Hurt Locker.
Hurt Locker,
It won
yeah.
numerous Academy Awards, but did horrible at the box office, things like that.
But then there are other movies which deviated greatly and are very different, like Scanner Darkly, for example, which I personally don't like. But I mean, it is a very original movie at the same time, and yet it's not really accepted. Like,
We don't really need. I believe that we don't really need all the rules and punctuations that we currently have, because it's up to us to decide whether we need punctuation to read. Because when we talk to each other, we don't say like comma, I went to the store.
Right.
We just say it.
Another
And-
example, when people text back and forth,
Right, exactly.
nobody spells out the word you, or like they'll use the number for,
Exactly.
or like people that play computer games a lot use leet speak, and we understand what each other's saying, but for some reason that's
Not valued in a classroom.
Not that it's not valued, but it's also not even recognized
Right.
at all.
Right. Not even.
Like if you put that on a paper, you're done. They're like, you spelled it wrong. It's like, yeah, but you still knew what I meant.
That's
so what
it's
does it matter how I did
creative.
it?
Creative.
but what's creative to one person isn't creative to another. Like, people put lawn ornaments in their front yard. A lot of us will look at that and think if that's crap and not see it as creative, but the people that put it there could see, like, the couple of pink flamingos and, a little lawn gnome. It's very creative in expressing how they feel about their lawn. Or, people, the way they put up pictures in a room, to them they express creativity if they do it in like a certain kind of pattern, and to other people they just look at it and they don't see it as creative at all.
I think it's sad that we grew up with really strict rules on communication, but then you can have an immigrant come to our country from somewhere else, and he or she can speak broken English, but the meaning is still there. Most people can still understand them, and they can function in society. Where we grow up here and we have all these strict rules, and we're taught that we need to know these specific rules so we can function in society as well.
Even as a child, you're taught in schools, you come up with ideas, and teachers and authority figures are always telling you, no, you can't, or that's not possible, that can't be done. But like, who's to say it can't be done? If you want a car that has wings and a tail,
Yeah.
That's being creative.
That's being creative. That's a creative idea. But you're told, no, that can't happen, and then you're just like, all right, well, then
You
I
think
won't
society stifles creativity?
Well, it's not all of society. I think it's the people that shape you as you're growing up that stifle your creativity, which in turn causes society to become less and less creative as the generations go
What I
on.
see it as is like if the creativity follows the norm, then it's not stifled. But as soon as it differs from the norm,
Right.
then it's stifled. Like you see kids in school that other kids will make fun of just because they're a little bit different, and they're just expressing their creativity. It's just not the same creativity that the majority of people happen to
So
express.
creativity is something that in our society has been defined.
It has like people.
Like it's not something that should have been defined, but
Like-
it has been defined.
Like for example, look at like he was saying Avatar. I mean Avatar that it's been overplayed the plot. It really has been. But at the same time everybody enjoys and everybody accepts it. But then you have movies like Hurt Locker, which I mean it won an award, sure, but the majority of people sometimes they watched it and it didn't really do very well.
To be fair in that situation, though, you're judging them both based on story, and I feel like in that sort of an essence of you're, in a sense, looking at creativity through one lens, and that's the story lens. I'm saying, like, the thing I'm saying, and I like playing devil's advocate in these situations, is that you could say that maybe Avatar was never meant to be a good story. Its creativity came from its visuals, whereas Hurt Locker maybe it came from its, its story or its suspense, and that they can exist in their own creative worlds and play to different audiences. Obviously, Avatar maybe literally appealed to more people in the sense that more people saw it and maybe could connect to it than, say, like a specific rock war drama. And that's fine. They have their own audiences. My point is that it's hard to compare, using the phrase apples to oranges because they are creative in their own respects.
They are, and I believe me, as much as I think Avatar's story lacks, the visuals make up for it in my opinion. But at the same time, it's still, when you express your creativity, you can express it in many different ways. True, the visuals could be expressing the creativity in that point, but that doesn't mean the creativity has to lack story-wise. It doesn't mean that at all. They can both be phenomenal and just be creative all around. It doesn't have to be just creative visual and just creative storyline. And yeah, it's true you can't compare them because of that, but you'd have to ask the director if that's what he was looking for, a non-creative story with a creative visual. And if it wasn't, then he failed. So,
James Cameron thought it was a very creative story.
so then there you go. Then
Why don't
it's
we
not.
6 minutes?
I find it really strange though that the people who teach us as we're growing up to be creative actually limit our creativity, and when we communicate between each other, like when we play apples to apples, we come up with these crazy ideas, but
Shake that bear.
they're usually really creative and things that nobody else would think about in a classroom because we're trying to learn.
Told not to drink that way in a classroom.
We're
So
trying to
the general conclusion we can say is creativity is relative to the situation.
Yes.
And it's
Okay.
opinionated.
Okay.
Yeah, really.
Okay. Well, what are some life examples of creativity in your classes or no creativity in your classes?
Actually, I don't think I've ever had any creative teachers really, except for Miss Simon. I had an English teacher up here, a composition teacher up here at UCF, and I was a little bit confused about one of the topics that we had to write about. So I asked her for some help, and all she told me was to follow the directions. So
Yeah.
On the side of actual creativity, I mean, it's not necessarily a strict English class, but it's public relations, writing, and to get across we use the Associated Press style book because we have to write like journalists write, so it's easier to publish it anyways. So to get some of the rules down, because there are a lot of rules, and so I'm probably talking about the rules for writing. But she would put the rules on the board and as a game, and we'd get into groups, and we'd have to run up and get the paper with the miswritten sentence. I'm not talking about the sentence itself, just about how she explained the rules. Just so happens it's an English class, and we had to rewrite the correct grammar on the sentence and then run up, and then she'd give us points, and whoever had the most points at the end got extra credit. So it was a way that we all in our group remembered it better than just sitting there typing in a PowerPoint, writing down the notes. So that was a creative way that I had learned
Okay.
information.